Alright, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about 5.5c. 5.5 is polynomials, and we're going to talk about subtraction of polynomials in this video. So subtraction is a little bit different from addition. We talked about addition last time, so we're going to talk about subtraction of polynomials. It's similar, but a little bit different. So we're going to fast forward here. We've covered kind of this stuff here, so we're going to talk about subtraction of polynomials. So here we go. We got subtraction of polynomials. Remember, polynomials are sentences, and sentences are made up of those terms. We get terms separated by addition. We can have monomials with just one term. We can have binomials with two terms. We can have trinomials with three terms, and etc. after that. If we're talking about subtraction, well, let's take a step back. If we talked about addition of polynomials, we talked about adding up each of those like terms that are in each polynomial that we're adding. Subtraction is real similar. We have to take a look at combining each term in each of the polynomials that we're subtracting. But we have to really pay attention to some things. The book talks about subtraction of polynomials as addition of the opposite. So if we've got polynomial A and we've got polynomial B, then we can take a look at A as well. If we're saying A subtracted, or A minus B, B subtracted from A. So we've got A, and we just rewrite A as a polynomial. It could be a monomial, binomial, trinomial, whatever we've got. We've got whatever polynomial we're starting with, and we're subtracting B. The book describes subtracting B as adding the opposite. So when we're subtracting B is the same thing as adding the opposite of B. Looks pretty straightforward, but when we talk about polynomials, we have to really pay attention to what we're talking about, especially for subtracting and changing the subtracting to adding the opposite of everything that's in that polynomial. That's going to be important. So let's take an example. If we've got something like, and I'll switch to blue. My example would be something like if I've got 6x cubed and we're subtracting 4x cubed, and I've got just two polynomials. There's a monomial, there's a monomial. But those are two polynomials. I've got one that I'm starting with. Here's my A. Here's my B. I'm subtracting B. And B could be 4x cubed. But if we're subtracting B, I guess let's take a fast forward and say, well, what is this? 6x cubed minus 4x cubed. Well, that gives us, it should be 2x cubed. That should be our answer. But let's figure it out according to what the book says, because we're going to take a first example and then a second example and then do some things down here. All right, so if I've got 6x cubed minus this polynomial here in parentheses minus 4x cubed, what does that give us? We're eventually going to get here, but let's follow what the book says and kind of the way to do this and think about it. We still write our A polynomial as 6x cubed, and instead of subtracting that polynomial, I'm going to add the opposite of that polynomial. Opposite of that polynomial means the opposite of every term in there. We've only got one term, but we're adding now the opposite of that term, which means adding the opposite of 4x cubed is adding negative 4x cubed. All right, so now what does this give us? 6x cubed plus negative 4x cubed is 6 plus negative 4x cubed. I got a whole, whoops, hang on, close that, and close that, close that. 6 plus a negative 4 gives me 2x cubed, and that's the same as right there. So kind of the long way around, but kind of this is what they're recommending doing. If we're subtracting a polynomial, we're adding the opposite. And this will be important when we have more than just a monomial. Let's take another example and say, you know what, here's another example with a couple of different terms in it. Let's say I've got some A polynomial, and the important thing is not going to be the A, but we're going to, let's say, subtract the polynomial 3A minus 4B minus C. Now the important thing, I wrote the polynomial A as just a polynomial because that one is not so important, because we're not going to change that one when we subtract. What we do is we have to change this one here. when we subtract. So remember they said subtracting the b polynomial is the same thing as adding the opposite. So let's take a look at what that would mean. We're going to not change the a polynomial, because right over here, this a polynomial didn't change, the a polynomial didn't change, the a polynomial didn't change, so we're not going to concentrate on that. But what we are going to concentrate on is adding the opposite. So when we add the opposite, we're adding the opposite of each of these terms. The opposite of 3a is negative 3a. The opposite of negative 4b is plus 4b. The opposite of negative c is plus c. Now from the green to the red, I use a different analogy as well. I say, you know what, this negative sign here is a mean guy, and he won't be happy until everything in here changes. Everything in this little house changes. So he becomes happy when everybody changes. Plus 3a becomes minus 3a. Minus 4b becomes plus 4b. Minus c becomes plus c. When everything changes in here, he becomes happy. So now we've got the a polynomial not changing, because that's not what we're concentrating on. We're concentrating on subtracting any polynomial becomes adding the opposite, or the mean guy becomes happy when everything changes. Either way you think about it, that's what happens. So now when we have this type of polynomial, now we've got a, doesn't matter what a is, as long as we've got some like terms to combine with these, we're going to be okay moving forward. But the a would not change down here as well. And the important thing is this plus parentheses, that parentheses here, all around all these terms just goes away. Plus parentheses can go away. So now we've got a minus 3a plus 4b plus c, and that would be our next step. So now we can combine all these terms, because if there were terms in here to combine, we could combine the a's with the a's, the b's with the b's, the c's with the c's, and we'd be okay. All right. So let's take some examples and see what we can do. This is kind of what we covered up here. So from here on, we would combine like terms. From here on, we would combine like terms. Right here, because we changed the negative to the positive, we can combine like terms. Let's take a look at this example here and see what we can do. So here's our a polynomial minus our b polynomial. Here's our a minus our b polynomial. So the a polynomial is not going to change. The b polynomial will, because up here, that's what we concentrated on here. We're going to get some space here on the next page. So I'm going to go to the next page, get some more space. So again, here is that same exact polynomial, a and b polynomial. We're subtracting b from a. So when we subtract, we have to change it to addition. So the a polynomial, again, doesn't change. So here's our minus 4p to the fourth power plus 5p squared minus 3. And that's our a polynomial. This subtracting b becomes adding the opposite. So here's where we say, we have to change the negative b to adding the opposite of b. So we have to change this negative sign to adding, and we have to add the opposite of all these terms. Opposite of 11p squared is negative 11p squared. Opposite of plus 4p is minus 4p. Opposite of negative 6 or minus 6 is plus 6. And now we can say, here's our a polynomial didn't change. The subtracting changed to positive, so we're, instead of subtracting b, we're adding the opposite of b. So the opposite of b is opposite of every single term inside b. And now the plus parentheses can go away, and we say, now let's just rewrite everything in terms of a and b, in terms of all the terms inside the polynomials. Here's our minus 4p to the fourth plus 5p squared minus 3 minus 11p squared minus 4p plus 6. And now we can use our line method to go through and say, all right, all these, anything that's common, anything that have like terms, we just add up. Or we can use our columns and say, let's add up all the p to the 4th powers here, p squareds here, p to the 0th power here. I'm going to use the line method just because it's the one that I'm kind of most familiar with. It's pretty straightforward. So we take a look at the p to the fourth power. Any p to the fourth power as well is just that one p to the fourth power. So our answer is for the combination of the like terms is minus 4p to the fourth power. Any p cubes, and we can cross that one off. Any p cubes? No p cubes. All right, p squared. Here's a p squared. Here's a p squared. So minus 5p squared. Sorry, plus 5p squared minus 11p squared is we add up the coefficients. Plus 5 minus 11 gives us minus 6p squared. And we can combine those and put those, we've combined them down here, so we cross them off. P to the first power, well, we just got this, so it's now minus 4p to the first power, or just p. And now we add the coefficients, or the constant terms, or the p to the 0th power terms. Minus 3 plus 6 gives us plus 3, and there's our answer. We've combined the two a and b polynomials, so it was a minus b is the same thing as a plus the opposite of b. Here's our a term, or a polynomial. A polynomial didn't change. We changed the subtraction to positive, or subtraction to addition, sorry, when we change each term to its opposite. So minus b is plus negative b, or plus the opposite of b, and now plus parentheses go away, and there's our answer. When we combine the like terms, is that one there. Straightforward enough, I believe. Alright, so remember that a minus b is the same thing as, I'll write it up here, is the same thing as a plus negative b. And the negative b is probably the important one, where you have to change all the terms to the opposites before you change the subtraction to addition. I'm going to ask you to now take a look at this. Excuse me. Take a look at this subtraction. Here's our first polynomial. Here's our second polynomial. Here's our a polynomial. Here's our b polynomial. Do this subtraction of polynomials on your own, and then watch the video to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So pause the video, work on it yourself, and then come back. Alright, so if this is our a polynomial and we're doing a subtraction of b, we have to do this, we have to kind of do the dance and say that should be a plus minus b. And from b to minus b, we have to change every single term in there. So our a polynomial is not going to change. We just write down a squared minus 2ab plus 7b squared. And then when we change subtraction to addition, we can do that if we change each individual sign, or each individual term to its opposite. So we change the negative to a plus, and we can write down the plus 8a squared if we want. We don't have to write down the plus because we understand that 8a squared would be positive. Minus 6ab would be plus 6ab. Plus 2b squared is minus 2b squared. And now we can change the negative to a positive. We change the mean guy to a happy guy if everybody changes inside the house. Negative to a positive, negative to positive, positive to negative. And now the plus parentheses can go away. And we can say, here's our a polynomial. So here's our a polynomial is a squared minus 2ab plus 7b squared, and the plus parentheses go away, and we have what's left over is plus 8a squared plus 6ab minus 2b squared. And now we just combine like terms. We take a look at, you can do the column method, you can do the linear method. The linear method would be probably pretty straightforward because we've got just a squareds, we've got ab, we've got b squareds, and again, when we're adding polynomials, we add like terms. What are the like terms? Exactly the same variable to exactly the same power. Here's my a squared. I've got 1a squared plus 8a squared gives me 9a squared. ab and ab are the like terms. Minus 2ab plus 6ab is plus 4ab. And plus 7b squared minus 2b squared gives me plus 5b squared. And there's the answer that you should have gotten. Hopefully you've gotten it. All right, now here comes a question. Question for you to add to the Dropbox is this one here. I'll put it in black. All right, now I've got my a term. Remember, here's our a minus b is a plus negative b. Here's my a polynomial. Minus 3y squared plus xy plus 2x squared. That's my first polynomial. And I'm subtracting, because we're subtracting polynomials, 2y squared minus 3xy minus 8x squared. And that is a polynomial. So here's our a polynomial. Here's our b polynomial. Write down the answer to that as your answer for the Dropbox, then put it in the Dropbox, and we can go from there. Any questions, bring them to class. See you soon.